Academic Listening Project by Alzar, Putra and Sulthan Gibran from Class 4.
TOEFL IBT. TOEFL IBT is a 4-hour computerized test with 4 sections: reading, speaking, listening, and writing. This test is to test your skills in each section. You will use one main skill in each section, like for example, you have 20 minutes on speaking and 50 minutes on writing, but different with 2 sections left, reading and listening. Readings range from 60 to 80 minutes long, while listening range from 60 to 90 minutes long. There will be no reminder time for the time, so use your time wisely to do the task. Don't worry, you will have one 10 minutes break in the middle of the task, between speaking and listening sections. Take it for refresh your mind during the task.
In the TOEFL IBT listening sections, we got tasks like main ideas, details, implications, relationship between ideas, information of organization, and speaker's objective. Part 1. Main ideas.
This is the first kind of listening section. It's called main ideas. Every listening sample will begin in the same way, with a main idea question. This question asks you to identify the main point of the lecture or conversation.
See, when you see this kind of question, remember that you should only be concerned with the main idea of the passage. Supporting ideas, examples, and counterexamples will not be correct answers. Just because an answer choice is true doesn't mean that it's the correct answer. It must be the most important of all the correct answer choices. They usually take one of the following forms. First, why does the professor ask to see the student? 2. What problem does the student have? 3. What is the main idea of the passage? 4. What subjects the professor mainly discussing? Here's an example. You have to listen to the audio and then answer the following questions based on the lecture.
Here's the tips for answering main ideas question. First, you have to focus on the supporting ideas. The second is the question asks for the main purpose of conversation. Usually the answer will be in the beginning of the conversation. And the last is go to the easiest question first.
Now for the details question. Detailed questions are roughly equivalent to the factual questions from the TOEFL reading section. They deal with specific facts from the listening section, but they are not usually as specific as detailed questions in the reading section.
Detailed questions in the listening section rarely deal with very specific information like numbers or names. Instead, they focus on those facts that you would recognize as important as you listen to the recording. Detailed questions are usually in harmony with the main idea of the recording. Before you mark a final answer, revisit the main idea of the recording and make sure that your answer choice makes sense considering the main idea. And here's an example of details question.
Tips for answering the details question. 1. As you choose your answer choice, be careful not to fall into the trap that false friends may set for you. False friends are answer choices that use keywords from the passage in a way that appears to be correct but isn't. They may directly contradict the information in the passage, or they may simply not make sense. Second, before you mark a final answer, revisit the main idea of the recording and make sure that your answer choice makes sense considering the main idea. Third, pay attention to the speaker because there is no second chance to listen to the audio. Next, implications. In this section, the main purpose of this question is to make an inference of the passage.
This type of listening question usually look very similar to one of these examples. First, what can be inferred from the professor discussion? Second, what will the student probably do next? And the last, what is implied when the speaker say this? Reply a short segment. Sometimes, the question will replay a sentence from the recording for you. Other times, you will need to rely on your notes and memory to answer the question. Unfortunately, your notes may not always be much help since you can take notes on information that isn't there. And here's an example of this question.
And here are some tips for answering implications question. 1. Never pick an answer that contradicts a main idea from the passage. Second, the information is in the recording. Never draw from your own thoughts or experiences if they are not also spoken about in the recording. Third, as you are listening, pay attention to the speaker's tone. The correct answer will probably use some keywords not found in the recording. And the last one is, the implication is very similar to what's directly said. You do not need to make a large logical jump. The next type of questions is relationship between ideas. This question is the second kind of organization question that will ask you about the relationship between the two or more parts of the lecture. Like I told you before, the second kind of organization question is the one that deals with the relationships between various parts of the lecture. For example, the test may ask you, how does the professor explain his theory about the causes of the war? To answer the question, you would need to look back at your notes and find the information that is relevant to that question. These questions are about the smaller relationships rather than the overall structure. And here's the example. Next type, information of organization.
The question tests your understanding the meaning that we get from the context. They often will ask about a very particular part of the passage, even just a single word. The question will replay a segment of the recording that contains the topic of the question, and then will replay just the topic. There will be no transcription provided for any part of this question. All the information will be provided through listening. This question does not deal with the meaning of the words the speaker says, but rather with the information that is implied by how the speaker says them. Here's an example of this question.
Tips for this one? Listen for signals that will help you understand the organization of a talk, connections between ideas, and the importance of the ideas. The last part is speaker subjective. This kind of question often deals with information that's given not just by what the speaker says, but also by how they say it. This question will ask you about inferring the speaker's opinion, what information the speaker's intonation and word choice give you about the speaker's feelings and relationship toward the subject she or he is discussing. These questions may also ask you about feelings that are directly stated or strongly implied, as in the following example. Now these are the tips for speaker subjective question. First, keep the context of the conversation in mind. Second, listen to as much natural speech as you can and pay attention to how intonation and vocal quality change with the speaker's moods. Third, learn to recognize nonverbal cues and combine them with the words that the speaker uses to understand exactly how the speaker feels.
Thank you to listening and pay attention to our presentation. Hopefully, it will be useful for us in the future. Thank you and see you. Bye bye.